Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 modding video. Today, of course, we're checking out another new weapon released by myself and Pig. That's right, we've got a new weapon drop today, and it's a pretty cool one. We've got a brand new rolling block rifle. Now, if you're not familiar with the rolling block rifle, this is actually based on a real gun. Well, actually a plethora of real guns. A rolling block rifle is sort of more of a type of gun, not really one specific one. There are many specific rolling block rifles. There are the Remington rolling block rifles, there's the Vatican ones, and a handful of others, I'm sure. But ours is going to be a mishmash of some of my favorite parts and designs, with, of course, some small tweaks for animations here and there. That all being said, it is still very much identifiable as the weapon that it is, which is a rolling block rifle. Funny enough to me, I think the name is generic enough that the rolling block rifle is actually its in-game name as well. But in case you're still not familiar with what this weapon actually is, it's essentially a cowboy equivalent of a sniper rifle. It's a single shot gun. Every time you fire it, you are going to have to reload it entirely, but it is going to pack a massive punch. So it's going to have a very low fire rate, as again, every time you shoot, you are going to need to reload, and we actually have perfect fitting custom animations for this thing so that every time you reload, it's going to have a nice new custom animation. And then you're going to get one massive shot that's going to deal a lot of damage. And that's because this thing is actually in a pretty big caliber, that being 4570 government, which is a pretty massive round. I mean, it's not 50 BMG, but it's still pretty big. That being said, it is probably one of the biggest rounds available to the cowboys of the time that this weapon was being used. Now, a little bit about this gun. It is one that is not necessarily rare, but it's one that I don't see talked about a whole lot. You don't see it very often in media. I don't see people asking for mods of it, but it is one that is really, really cool. It was actually featured pretty prevalently in Red Dead Redemption 2 as a sniper rifle that you could get in that game. I believe in that game that it was only available with a scope, whereas ours has a lot more customization options than that, allowing you to use this as a heavy rifle or a sniper rifle or a couple of different options, but it is always going to be a single shot, really, really heavy weapon. But yeah, I wanted to give this thing a little bit more reach. It's a weapon that we don't see a lot in media, and I think it's one that could fit really well in Fallout, especially if you're doing a cowboy playthrough. Really, when you are playing as a cowboy, you only have lever actions and revolvers. There's not really a lot to choose from beyond that, so having something else to use is really, really cool. So I think you could easily pair this up with one of your favorite lever action mods, your favorite revolver, and maybe some kind of shotgun, and you have a complete loadout of weapons that are all completely different from each other, but are still fitting the cowboy aesthetic, which I think is really, really cool. Now then, let's get into some more of the specific details about how the gun actually functions in-game. I did mention already that this thing is chambered in 4570 government. That means it is going to require Far Harbor. I really don't think that's going to be an issue this late into the game's life cycle. Most of you should probably have that DLC by now, and it is going to utilize some elements of that DLC beyond the ammo type. Additionally, this thing has a ton of new attachments over at the weapons workbench to help you customize this thing, whether you want this to be a short, light, heavy cannon, or you want it to be a really, really long and super accurate sniper rifle. This thing also has custom animations, like I've said before. We'll show them off a little bit more later, but they are wonderful. They're actually going to be brand new animations that you have not seen before, so that is pretty nice as a feature for this mod. This weapon is going to be injected into the level list, so it is fully integrated into your world. If you want to get your hands on this weapon, you can actually find it on Trappers over in Far Harbor, but you can also find it in the Commonwealth on Minutemen and the Gunner Sniper class. Yes, the Gunners do have a sniper class, and they will be using this weapon. You can, of course, also purchase this thing over at any vendor that sells weapons, and you can do all of that after level 20. And if that integration wasn't enough for you, there is also a unique that you can hunt down with a new effect and, of course, a completely new aesthetic. As you know, my uniques always do look a bit different than the standard variant of the gun. Now then, I did say one unique this time. I know we typically include 2 or 3, but I'm trying to kind of pull back on that. First of all, because we are going to eventually run out of locations in the Commonwealth to put these things, but also because I want to spend more time making each unique actually feel unique, and also not flood your game with just 100 of them. Now then, I do think that covers most of the basics. Let's head in-game and start talking about some more specific details like its stats, its new animations, and the unique that you can find, as well as, of course, all those fancy new attachments. So, starting off, of course, we need to talk about the stats for this gun, and we also get a nice look at the model here itself, which I think is quite nice. The only liberties I really had to take with this thing were stretching out the front handguard here. I wanted it to be much shorter, but there are actually some versions of this that have a handguard like this, so it's not too bad of a compromise, I'd say. Now then, this thing has a base damage of about 54. As always, ignore the damage that you see here represented by my game, as I do have some perks that I just cannot remove. This thing is chambered in 4570, has a fire rate of only 6 because, again, you're going to shoot this thing and reload every single time you shoot it. It's got an accuracy of 92, which is actually pretty good considering these are pretty standard set of attachments. That number can get way higher, and I can say this thing is really, really pinpoint accurate, and it's got a pretty great range. Again, this thing has a range of 620 in its current configuration. That is by far the selling point of this weapon, is how good it is at shooting things that are very, very far away. This thing has a weight of 12.3 pounds in its current configuration and a value of 210 caps. And of course, all of these stats can be configured over at the weapons workbench by switching out different attachments to your liking. Now then, it is of course time to check out the animations for this guy. And I have to say, I'm very happy that we have a full set of custom animations just for this weapon. It's very nice. You can see the rolling block mechanism there. It's something that kind of needs a special bit of treatment, as it does have a lot of moving parts for a very simple weapon. Now, like I said, this thing is super accurate, so we will be using a scope to show off how accurate this thing is. And there is the brand new custom animation, and that's pretty much the only animation you need, as you're going to be reloading every time you shoot. This isn't a bolt action, it's a rolling block, which again is a term for the mechanism that it actually uses. Now then, go ahead and take a shot at all of these other targets here so you can see the animation some more. And again, show off how accurate this thing is. This may not be the best test, maybe we could have put these out a bit further, but it is still pretty nice. A very, very cool and very different sniper rifle from what is available on the Nexus currently. Altogether, I'm very, very pleased with these animations. They do have some issues here and there. We are waiting on a fix from a friend of ours who is very, very talented in the animation scene, but we haven't gotten those quite yet. There are some issues in third person, but in first person, I'd say these are looking pretty nice. Of course, though, now we need to talk about the unique available in this mod, which is known as the Sharpshooter, where we have taken a lot of the steel and replaced it with brass. And this thing has a really fun effect, which is that time will slow down while you're aiming. So I would suggest throwing a long scope and a long barrel on this guy and using it as a sniper rifle. When you aim with it, you are going to get a couple seconds of time slowdown to really focus up your shot and try to get a headshot to get the absolute maximum damage out of this thing. Now, statistically, there isn't really much going on different from that. It has the same damage and pretty much all of the same stats there, but again, it does have really, really nice new textures. Again, brass all over the metal, and also a wood recolor from the standard brown to a nice black stained wood, and also black leather to go with it. So all of the leather parts that you can equip over at the weapons workbench will also be stained black, which I think is a really, really cool color combo. Now, while this is a single shot 4570, I do think this is a pretty powerful unique, so we actually did place this one over in Far Harbor to make use of that DLC dependency, and we threw it over in the Oceanarium. And of course, that means now it is time to show off all of the attachments over at the weapons workbench. We've got the receiver section where you've got standard all the way up through advanced, of course, giving yourself basically double damage with this weapon, which is pretty dang good considering how much damage it has already. If you're using my balancing, this thing is going to be the same damage as if you're not, but that being said, it is going to fit a little bit better in my balancing. Otherwise, this thing's going to be a pretty powerful sniper. Though honestly, as far as my weapons go, I think that this one's going to work pretty much either way you run it. It just kind of depends on what you like. Now then, we also have barrels. We have a short heavy, which is going to be an octagonal design, which is perfect for an old weapon like this, and it fits with the receiver very well. Then we have a medium version of both of those, as well as a long version of both of those. So depending on which one you like, you get to choose either one, whether it's the cylinder shape or the octagonal shape, but we have all of them available for every length. We've also got a handful of stock options. We've got the full stock. We've got a bruiser stock, which has a massive axe on the bottom there. So since you don't get to shoot this thing very often because you're going to be reloading all the time, you might get caught in a situation where you maybe need to rely on melee. So this is going to help back you up in those situations. Alternatively, you can opt for the gunslinger stock, which is going to have some extra shells there to make the reloading a bit faster. So you will have a faster reload with that equipped. Or alternatively, you can lean into the sniper side of this with the marksman stock, which is going to give you exceptional accuracy and better aim with scopes. So that's a pretty cool option as well. Depends on how you want to run this gun. For scopes, we have the options for iron sights, so you can run this thing without a scope if you'd like to. There's even glow versions of those sights for better accuracy at night. And then we have, of course, a short scope, a medium scope, and a long scope, all with a nice vintage aesthetic based on some real scopes that I saw on the rolling block. Then for muzzles, we have the option for no muzzle, a compensator, a muzzle brake, which is a pretty big one, and then a suppressor as well, based on an old school Maxim suppressor, which looks quite nice. Typically, you wouldn't really see muzzles on a rolling block because they didn't exactly have threading, but it is Fallout after all, and you need some customization options for those areas to get just a little bit more out of your gun when available. And then finally, we do have one more section that was added by Pig to help you customize this thing a bit more, since it doesn't have anything like magazines or other options. You have the internal section where you can have standard internals, the light internals, calibrated internals, and tuned internals, which are just going to get you a little bit more bang for your buck with this weapon with some nice new effects that aren't the standard damage upgrades from the receivers. So the light internals are going to actually make this thing lighter and improve your AP costs. The calibrated internals will give you better critical shot damage, and the tuned internals will give you better reload speed. So you can kind of fine-tune this thing depending on what it is you're looking to get out of this weapon. So yeah, guys, that is the rolling block rifle, a very unique and very different sniper rifle, at least when it comes to what we have available over on the Nexus. If you know me, I like to fill in some of those really weird niche guns that we just don't really have anything. I mean, our last gun was a charging burst pistol, and this one was a very funky cowboy sniper rifle. That being said, I still make time for some passion projects to do guns that I just kind of want to do. But if you enjoy this thing and you want a new old-fashioned sniper rifle, you can go ahead and grab it. It'll be linked down in the description below. And while you're down there, check out the comments, because I also have linked the mod that has already come out. There's another mod after this one that is already dropped, and if you want to see it, you can grab it down there. With that, as always, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, consider dropping it a like. It really helps it out. And consider dropping the mod endorsement if you want to help it out over on the Nexus scene. Also, if you'd like to support my work directly, whether it's the videos here on YouTube or the mods that I'm making over on the Nexus, you can do so using the link down in the description to support me on Patreon. It's the best way to do so if you want to give me a direct support financially, but of course, you do not have to. That is completely optional. It's just there for people who want to donate. With that, as always, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace!